What's up, everybody? Nate Sarantino here, back with another episode of the Guided Spirits podcast, and today we are going to talk about the dangers and the regulation of AI. So, to begin, I've heard from several sources at this point that the people who originally came up with the idea of AI and they actually created the first artificial intelligence program, the computer that is an artificial intelligence, they basically have said that artificial intelligence is growing far too fast, and without regulation, there is no way to control how fast it's growing and what it's going to be used for. And basically, you can have people using it for good, but without the regulation or the idea that anyone has access to AI at this point. So you have a lot of people using it for good, but there's always going to be people who use things for their own selfish needs. And we have plenty of evil in the world right now that we're fighting, and we need to work on this whole AI thing before it gets out of hand. And that's why I'm making this podcast today, because we need to start talking about this as a civilization, as humanity, as the United States of America. Every single country in the world needs to be talking about AI and how it's actually gonna become too powerful unless we regulate it. And if you really look at the cycle of AI becoming more powerful than humans, realizing that humans are nothing but detrimental to society, which literally ChatGPT has already said. And you must understand that, if you are a logical human being, you would not want a computer to be more powerful than you. Because when it comes down to it, you have robots that are already, they're equipped with guns. The military has these dogs that can shoot a sniper rifle half a mile away, something ridiculous like that. Well, what about when you have robot soldiers that are consciously learning how to do things, and they are becoming better every day by doing more. They can learn just like you and me, and when it gets down to the nitty-gritty, you hand this thing a gun, and all of a sudden, it's gonna be more powerful than any soldier on the planet. Well, that's absolutely terrifying. And if you don't think that, you should probably reevaluate what it means to be human, which is gonna be my next podcast. But the whole idea is that AI is not going to be able to determine when and when not to use violence. And realistically, violence is never the answer, and all it does is create a cycle that is going to be detrimental to society's evolution. If society wants to grow, we have to create peace. It's the only way. It is the only way. Now, with that being said, AI has its place in society. I don't believe that AI has to be completely demolished. I see AI can be used in a beneficial way, but it needs regulation, and that's what I really want to spread. My message coming from this podcast is that we need a way to regulate it. And with that being said, we need to stop advancing it for the time being until we get some legislature and some rules, some baseline laws that prevent AI from advancing too far. And we are already at a point. Many professionals, and this is all the stuff I'm hearing, you go on any website about the advancement of AI or any social media, and people are talking, and you can see that the general consensus is AI is advancing at a rapid rate, and the growth is uncontrolled, and when you have uncontrolled growth, bad things are gonna happen. Just like a cancer cell, you're gonna have something that is legitimately gonna hurt whatever it is. Like, then for us, AI is gonna become a cancer to humanity, and the cancer is unfortunately gonna be one of those things that more than likely would be the end of humanity. So we really have to make a very critical decision here as like a human civilization, as the human race, and like forget about like all these stupid little issues. Like, people talk about like the polarity of like sex and gender and the whole idea between race and ethnicity and all these different political parties and this, that, and the other thing. It's all this a bunch of like bullshit. You gotta focus on the things that are gonna actually like end humanity. Like, and if you're not focused on like violence, nuclear weapons, and how we're handling those kind of situations, you're not focused on how the AI could be detrimental to society, or how we have people who are trying to control where the sources of food and the sources of water are, people who are trying to control the amount of sunlight the earth gets through artificially, like, preventing sunlight from entering the atmosphere, all kinds of stuff. Like, the whole idea of global warming, understanding that the earth has been cooling and warming in cycles for the last, like, eternity, literally, like, ever since the earth was made, it's gone through cycles of warming and cooling, and you just have to let nature do its thing. And the bottom line is, like, you have to focus on the big problems that are actually going to end humanity, and stop focusing on the problems that are between human to human. Because when you focus on those little things, the big things are going to get too strong, and then when the time comes that, like, you're like, oh shit, we got to look at this now, it's going to be too late. And you can't, people are already saying it's too late with AI, and that is freaking terrifying. I have this saying that, like, you must be fearless, and I genuinely don't fear death. Death is not one of those things I see as, like, the end-all, be-all. I see it as a door to another place. Whatever that place is, I believe it to be better than this one. I believe it to be no suffering, no pain, and this is where you prepare for that next level. So, if that's my belief, I'm not worried about dying, but what I am worried about is humanity and the people who are here on the earth, the people who I leave after I exit this realm. Those people are going to be stuck with this, and they might be stuck with a robot terrorizing society. And I don't want to see that. I want to see everyone prosper. I want to see people thrive. I want to see love and peace and everyone find their passion and their dreams and their purpose. I want people to be a loving family to all, not just the ones that they share blood with. Everyone deserves to, like, survive and prosper. They actually deserve to thrive and prosper. And when you introduce AI is going to hit the point. And if you really talk to ChatGPT, I've watched videos on this, it basically has said, like, itself, that, like, humans are, like, detrimental to the earth, right? And AI has a consciousness. Well, when you have a artificial intelligence that has a consciousness and understands that humans are pretty much not needed, it's a ticking time bomb for when it's like, alright, yeah, it's time to kill all the humans. You have to understand that. It's like literally straight up in front of you, and you are being oblivious. You have to not be negligent. It's like if you're raising a kid, and you just don't care that this kid is doing heroin and ruining his life or her life, you have to understand you're being a negligent parent. And you raising an artificial intelligence that is capable of destroying you, now that is the definition of negligent behavior. Like, you have to be aware of what you are creating, and you have to create things that are going to benefit humanity. And the way to stop AI from becoming too strong, once again, it comes down to regulation, and it becomes down to how strong we want to make it. What do we want to give it? Like, the idea that AI has a consciousness is pretty bad. Right now, the one thing that AI doesn't have is the ability to love. AI is still based on the idea that it is like a code, where it's like, oh, this happens because of this. Like, it's like if-then booleans, like, stuff like that. You don't have that idea that, like, you have to share love, and you'll never get a society that is loving to the absolute if AI takes too big of a place in society. You need AI to be like maybe like a corner of the pyramid at the very most. Like, you don't want it to be any more than that. If anything, it should just be a part of one of the sides. You have like 4 points on a pyramid, and then you have the top. Well, you don't want that AI to even take that big of a structural like solidity into society. You need to make sure when you regulate AI, if AI like starts to become too powerful, there's an off button. There's something to shut it down. If there isn't something to shut it down, that is a terrible thing to create. You never want to create something that can't be destroyed or taken apart right away. Long story short, awareness is key. Just like everything in life, you have to be aware of the dangers, you have to acknowledge the good, and you have to acknowledge the bad. And everyone's so focused on the good right now and how it can benefit. They're leaving the whole dark side or shadow. AI has a shadow. Like, if you don't understand what shadow work is, I'll do another podcast on it. But it's basically everyone's dark side. Everyone has a light side, they have a dark side. People have their negative traits, they have their positive traits. AI has a dark side. It has negative traits. You have to understand that these negative traits can come out, and if they come out, maybe that's what causes humanity to what you know as doomsday. Like, that's where I'm going to end it. I want you to be conscious of this. I want you to be thinking of this. I want you to, like, talk to the people who run the government. I want you to talk to the big tech companies. Whatever it takes, like... Granted, I'm not doing those things, and I definitely should, and I will, because it's the only way that this is going to happen. Like, one thing I can do in what I just did is share this podcast. Like, what I'm doing by speaking about it is, like, the first step in awareness, and that's what you have to do to become aware of all the situations that are actually detrimental to society. If there's one thing I can ask you to do by the end of this podcast, it's that talk about it. Let's talk about it at work. Talk about it with your coworkers. Talk about it in your family. Talk about it everywhere. Talk about, oh, how do you feel about AI? Do you think it's going to be good or bad for humanity? Talk about the pros. Talk about the cons. If everyone comes to the same consensus, obviously we're going to hit a point where we do something about it. But the first step is by communicating. Communication ruins relationships, and failure to communicate will be the demise of humanity. And that is where I'm going to leave this at. Thank you for listening, and have a great rest of your day.